The What It Takes Radio Company presents How to Tell Your Story. That's right, tell your story and how to be a world-class podcaster. And today, he was a world-class broadcaster, and to those he was teaching and mentoring, he often said, "Notebooks." Well, here's the story. Greetings, this is Stan once again. Here we go with another adventure, another episode, maybe another chapter. It will be one of those. Hopefully it'll be something that'll be helpful to you. Again, how to reach your audience and how to be a world-class podcaster, broadcaster, communicator. And there's a whole story and legend behind why we say, yes, a podcaster, but more than that, a broadcaster. And more than that, a worldwide communicator. As we point out, there are a lot of programs out there that will teach you how to do a podcast. And that's quite simple, though it's not quite simple to do as it is for them to teach it to you, but it'll get you started. But we want to be more than that. We want to be world-class broadcasters. And we want you to be able to reach your audience. And we hopefully will be able not only to reach that audience, we will want to bring our message alive to that audience. And we want to do it in such a way that not only do they hear it and use it and find it useful, but there's a little bit of a foreverness in it, maybe even a little touch of immortality. And all of that can happen because it's on the internet and it is digital. And it's there for as long as there are any of those things. And who knows, 50, 100 years from now, there still may be you telling your story and sharing your wisdom. So let's see if we can begin to do that. Well, we've gone through a number of lessons so far, and we also have a class and a course that we can build from that and build for you so that you can have a special podcast course just for you and your organization for the people that you want. But if you want something just for you, you'll have to tell us a little bit more about that, and that is exactly what we will do. We will have a class, course, adventure made just for you. And it can be maybe start in 50 minutes, or maybe it'll go 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 hours. What do you want to do, and how much do you want to know? So here we go. It could be just a legend, one of those radio legends, but it's reported that a very famous broadcaster from many, many years ago, perhaps you've heard of his legendary appearances, name was Wolfman Jack, and he broadcast literally from deep in perhaps the Southwest, probably in many cases across the border in Mexico, where they could have a bigger radio transmitter than in the USA. And Wolfman Jack had his program go all over North America, particularly in the nighttime. And of course, there were millions of listeners on regular AM radio. Well, it's reported that he was oftentimes mentoring young men and women on how they could be like him. They wanted to be like Wolfman. And supposedly, he might walk into the place where the broadcasters would be, and he would shout, "Notebooks! Notebooks!" And within 30 seconds, they better have produced the notebook they were carrying, or the stack of note cards they had. And the reason for that was very simple, at least in his view, and of course, it's exactly true for all of you. Hey, as you go about your day, there are going to be all kinds of things. If you are aware and mindful and thoughtful, which is what you should be, you'll hear a joke. You'll hear a story. You'll see a bumper sticker. Somebody will say something. you'll read something. Or all of a sudden, something will just come into your head. Boom! That happens. Kind of a, yeah. And he said, you will forget it, but right then, pick up your note card out of your pocket, pick up your notebook, and you better have it handy, that it's right there with you, and write it down. Write it down. And then when you go back to your studio or you go back to where you do your program preparation, you will have a better chance of remembering those good and wonderful and serendipity ideas. But if you don't, if you wait a while, there's a good chance that you'll be distracted. And this has happened to all of us. You say, oh, what was that? Oh, what was that? That was so great. The word was, oh. And now you don't quite have it, or you don't quite have the wording that you had before. Well, that happens to all of us. But if you do what the wolf man said, there's a very good chance that you would have it. Now, I did that. Now, later on, there came out with these little mini cassette recorders that were meant for dictation. And many of you may have seen those. They have disappeared for the most part. Why? Because you all now have your own mini recorder. That's right. Everybody has one. But I had one that I think the first one cost me about $119, but it had to be a good one because I had to make sure, because it was always everywhere I took it, I might drop it. Then there was a new one that was digital, so you didn't even have to have those little mini cassettes. It was a digital one. And I think I spent about $220 for that, but that was great. And so whenever I had a good idea, or perhaps I was reading something in a newspaper or reading a book or something, I could just pull up my recorder and I could say it. And then when I got back to the studio or the office, it was available for me. And I did that for a number of years. Well, of course, I still do that. But you already have one of those $250 recorders, only it's free with the smartphone that you carry. Almost all of them have that little voice recorder phenomenon. And something else, not only do you have a voice recorder, but there's a very good chance that even your email. Now, open your email, and there's a very good chance that not only can you type it in, of course, going through it, but you'll hit the little microphone button, and you can just talk it, and it will dictate what you said. And the more you do it, the better it will be. And then you send that email to yourself. So when you get back to where you can print it out, there you have all of that stuff. Now, a world famous broadcaster who recently passed away in America, his name was Rush Limbaugh, and he was a very controversial but very successful radio talk show host, primarily in the conservative arena. But he was entertaining. In fact, I've oftentimes taught people that whether you liked him or not, and he oftentimes said, I have it down pat. People either love me or they don't, or they hate me, but they always respond to me. There was always something emotional, and he knew exactly how to please his audience that loved him and how to aggravate those in the audience that didn't love him but still wanted to listen to him. But when it came to the ratings, it didn't matter. The people who didn't like him and the people who did like him was a huge audience. And of course, that's why he was very successful and why he made a lot of money. And he didn't begin that way, but that's how he ended. A long and great life in broadcasting cut short because of a terrible episode with cancer, which took his life a few years ago. But he would use the expression stack of stuff. And what that meant was, because he was that kind of a broadcaster, what he would do is, when he would get done, he was a very shy man, which, by the way, a lot of these broadcasters are. In public, they're kind of shy. He was always taking notes. He'd see something, he'd rip it up, he'd collect newspapers, magazines, online, print it out. And then he also had colleagues and friends who would do the same thing. And he'd get notes from people and say, Russ, maybe this would be something you could use on your radio program. And he said, I never was lacking for things. Because many of us say, well, if I did do a radio program, how in the world would I ever come up with enough stuff? Well, what you will find is you'll have way more stuff than you can ever use. But in the stack of stuff, and then sometimes what he would say toward the end of the program, he said, oh, we didn't get through hardly any of the stack of stuff. And of course, the idea was that if you didn't get through it, you didn't use it, you just moved it over because maybe you could use it the next day. And then you'd start sorting through it and say, oh, this wasn't that good. And continually, your stack would grow, it would go down, but you would have good material that you could use. And of course, things would get out of date. Well, you throw those away, but you're continually keeping what is called the evergreen stuff, and that stuff you can use anytime. And then you would make sure that you had things that were happening right now, today, yesterday, what's predicted for tomorrow, which is the great wonder about radio, is that you can be truly point of the moment. You don't have to type it up. You don't have to print it. You don't have to publish it. You can just stand up and speak it. So I'm encouraging you now to find out how you are going to do your notebook. How are you going to do that so that your notebook will be something that you can always have with you, so you can always be collecting and keeping things that you will use. And people will begin to be amazed at all the things you know. Pretty soon, not only will you be known for what you can talk about on the radio, but you will find out, and I'd like to visit more about this, you'll be known as one of those persons who, they know their stuff, but they know a lot of other things. They're more than just a radio voice. They're more than just a person on topic. They have a variety of interests, things that make them not only interesting on the radio, but very interesting, well-informed, and hopefully with a touch of humility about the things they know and the things they believe. Well, that's the end of the show for today. But think about now how you want to go about being a person who is always able to collect the stuff that will make for good and great radio. I'm Stan Houston, thanking you for your time, and we'll press on to be world-class broadcasters reaching our audience. Take care. Till next time. Bye for now. Well, we thank you for your time. You're on your way to being a world-class podcaster, a broadcaster, a worldwide communicator. Reach out to us at stanhouston@gmail.com, stanhouston@gmail.com, 520-664-7002. Leave a message in the USA. We'll get back to you. And go to our YouTube channel. It is Reaching Your Audience, indeed, How to Be a World-Class Podcaster. And this program is brought to you by the What It Takes Radio Company.